doesn't matter who wins, the dollar is going to be destroyed, and that's going to result in chaos, financial chaos, economic chaos. We're going to see political chaos, and we're going to see social chaos. It's going to be a very unpleasant time.
Hey friends, Sean from SGT Report here. Thank you so very much for tuning in. You know how much I appreciate it. Look, YouTube gave me another unwarranted strike, this time for impersonation just the other day. So for 1 week, I can't upload to my main channel. So I've launched sgtreport.tv. It's going to be the solution for when YouTube finally terminates my channel without cause permanently. And right now on sgtreport.tv, I have an exclusive interview with Catherine Austin Fitz and Dr. Sherry Tenpenny. It's a must-hear. I couldn't post this content to YouTube anyway, so if you want to listen, subscribe to sgtreport.tv right now. I will be posting exclusive content to that site at least twice a week. So if you want to support truth and get the real uncensored stuff, check out sgtreport.tv. I'll leave a link below. Thanks for tuning in, friends, and now let's begin this interview with Doug Casey. Hey friends, welcome back. Thank you so very much for tuning in. I've got a great interview lined up for you here with Doug Casey. In a world where the dollar is dying and gold and silver are soaring, I thought this would be a very timely interview to get on the esteemed, knowledgeable Doug Casey. Doug, welcome.
It's a pleasure.
It's a pleasure to have you. Hey, with gold up at an all-time high in currencies around the world, not just the dollar, not just the euro, not just the yen, not just the yuan, it's up 100% since December's 2015 bottom. And guess what? Silver is up more than that since the March bottom. Precious metals are on fire, and the dollar has entered a bear market. Does this look like a mania to you, or just the early innings of a currency meltdown in which precious metals are poised to go far, far higher?
Well, it's the end of the bear market. Well, actually, the bear market in gold and silver was a couple of years ago, and they've been moving up since then. But this is the start of something big. We're looking. Look, we're involved right now in what I call the Greater Depression. It's going to be much more serious, much longer lasting, and much different than the unpleasantness of 1929 to 1946. And the precious metals moving up it's the overture of what's going to be a major collapse of the dollar and a panic into the precious metals and the precious metals mining stocks. So this is something of historic importance we're looking at right now. It's not a mania. It will become a mania. We've had a mania in houses and tech stocks and pot stocks with the trillions of dollars that the Fed has been printing up since the crisis began in 2008. We've had lots of bubbles. But I promise you the next bubble is likely to be gold and silver and the stocks of companies that mine them. So that's my view in a nutshell.
All right. I want to ask you about stocks in just a second. But first, you mentioned tech stocks. Let me just do a screen share for you here. This is just remarkable. You know, the Fed says there really is no inflation, and everybody's worried about deflation. Meanwhile, we see Tesla at $2,218 a share with a market cap of $413 billion, making it, I think, one of the top 13 most valuable companies on planet Earth. That's the mania. That's the mania right there, Doug.
Well, you're quite correct. The trillions of dollars that the government has created over the last 10 years, but over the last 6 months in particular, have mostly flowed into the financial markets and into the stock market. I mean, talk about stocks being in a bubble. Actually, bonds are in a hyper bubble. They're a gigantic accident waiting to happen. But you point out Tesla quite correctly. It's worth almost more than every other car company in the world. Now, let me hasten to add, I'm very pro Elon Musk. He's a genius. His SpaceX is a long overdue answer to the slow-moving and corrupt NASA, his boring company, uh, could be marvelous for updating railroads to the 21st century from the 19th century, where they've been. Uh, his brain company, whatever it's called, is the guy is an absolute genius. I'm all on his side, and I love uh, electric cars. They're also the future, but that's got nothing to do with the price of Tesla. Uh, so yeah, you're right. I mean, it's a bubble. The question is, where do we run to hide from the bubble? Uh, Certainly not the stock market in general. That is a giant accident waiting to happen.
Right. I think the brain interface company of Elon Musk's that you're referring to, I'm going off memory here, might be Neuralink. We don't have to get into that, but I think he wants everybody to become a transhumanist and take a chip in the brain. I don't know. I got to draw the line there and with mandatory vaccines, I'll tell you, Doug. But if we stay on course here with stock talk and mining talk, I've got a handful of mining shares, and I used to have Gold Mining Inc. I've interviewed Amir Adnani several times in the past. I recently took a position in Nova Gold Resources because I got an alert on my phone from a service I use called Trade Genius. But let's talk about Gold Mining Inc. I know you're a shareholder. Let's take a look at that chart. Okay, this is the 6-month chart on Gold Mining Inc. It's gone from below $1 to $2.56 US. Why don't you tell us about the company? This thing has been quite the mover, and I know you're a huge shareholder.
Well, it's one of my largest positions. And the fact is, I don't usually like to talk about individual companies in interviews like this because people can run out and buy them without knowing what they're doing. That's not the way you should buy stocks in general, and gold stocks in particular. But you bring up Gold Mining Inc., and I'll tell you why I own it. Uh, Over the years, I've developed what I call the 9Ps. They're a mnemonic, things that you should automatically look at when you buy any gold stock. Number one of the 9Ps is people. And I'm a longtime friend and supporter of Amir. He's something of a genius, actually. But let's get into the other reasons why I own Gold Mining Inc. in particular, if you'd like. Uh, the way it's structured, the way Amir set it up, was to buy gold assets, gold resources in the ground during the bear market. And he did. He's accumulated about 25 million ounces of gold in the ground in 5 different countries. When he acquired them, they were all sub-economic resources. He got them cheap. Now, with gold at around $2,000 an ounce, I suspect most of them could be shown as being reserves. You can buy these deposits for, at current prices of Gold Mining Inc., of about $15 an ounce. What's happened in the gold mining industry over the last decade is that there's been little exploration, there's been very little discovery. And right now, the average all-in sustaining cost of a major miner is under $1,000 an ounce, but they can sell their product for $2,000 an ounce. So it's an extremely profitable industry. What's going to happen with Gold Mining Inc. is that it's going to be taken over for much higher prices. Those reserves that you can buy right now for $15 are probably worth more like $100 per ounce. But beyond that, Amir is going to spin out a royalty company from Gold Mining Inc. in the months to come. And that royalty company alone should be worth half of the current market cap of Gold Mining Inc. alone. So there's lots of reasons why I own it. And I'm not planning on selling it until I see a golden bear on the front cover of Slime or Newspeak magazines, if they still exist, tearing apart the New York Stock Exchange. I'm going to hold it until then, at which point I might flip it for Berkshire Hathaway or something like that. Prices.
Well, no, that's brilliant. Berkshire Hathaway. It's funny. I remember back in the day, at the height of the tech bubble, in the day trading bubble, it was on the cover, I think, of Time and Newsweek about day traders and the new and easy money. And you knew that was the top. You just knew it because it was on the cover of those Mockingbird mainstream media publications. And what came next? The implosion of the tech bubble and all those day traders being hung out to dry. Hey, let me ask you something. As a deep-pocketed multimillionaire, where do you find the steely reserves to hang on to stocks like these when you know they're trading below levels they should at 50 cents, 60 cents, 70 cents? You're buying more where so many of us are getting shaken out. Now, if I'm going to put a feather in my cap, my own cap, I'd say I needed the same steely reserve as did my listeners, to hang on to physical silver and buy more when we knew the prices were being suppressed by the banksters. We knew it. We kept buying. But you have the tendency to do that not only with physical silver and gold, but with stocks. Where do you find the steely reserve to hang on when you're being hung out to dry with prices that make no sense?
The interesting thing about things occurring on the front cover of these popular magazines is that they're an indication of what's popular. And one recent announcement that has been widely noted is that Warren Buffett himself has bought about 10% of Barrick, which is the second largest international gold miner. And that's gotten the attention of a lot of people. They're figuring, wow, if Buffett is starting to accumulate gold stocks, perhaps I should look at the industry. Because all of the gold stocks, all the producing gold stocks, I should say, in the world have a market cap less, or well, not less now, it's probably more now, slightly more, than the cash in Amazon and in Apple's bank account alone. That's how tiny this industry is. And to answer your question, why have I held on to when I buy a quality stock, why I hang on to it? One of the oldest aphorisms in the market is be right and sit tight. And that goes along with another aphorism I ought to mention is the trend is your friend. And it's very clear that the trend in precious metals is up. So I buy quality stocks that I know the institutions are going to pour into because they don't own these things now. And I'm sitting tight until I can blow them out at much higher prices and trade them for industrial stocks when they are, again, cyclically cheap.
Can I ask you about silver? Are you a big silver guy? Are you a pragmatic person when it comes to silver? And the reason I ask is because, well, I just mentioned it. I'm a silver bug. I own some gold, but I own a lot more silver. The gold to silver ratio recently topped out at about 125 to 1, when the historical averages throughout human history are closer to 15 to 1. Now, since silver has started to move higher along with gold, silver, it's closed the gap, and the silver to gold ratio is now around 80 to 1. Are you surprised by the move in silver? And what do you expect for silver given that gold's at a new all-time high and silver's only at about half its all-time high, sitting at about $27 today?
I am a big silver bull, but for different reasons. It's unique among the 92 naturally occurring elements. It's the most reflective and the most conductive of all elements, which means in today's world especially, it's a high-tech industrial element. So, and it's a much, much smaller market than gold. All the gold that's ever been mined is basically in existence somewhere above ground in some form. That's not true of silver. About 10 times more silver is mined every year than gold, but almost all of it is consumed in one way or another. So it can't be readily accessed. When the bit gets in the public's teeth and they want monetary metals, silver being a much, much smaller market than gold is much, much more volatile. So in this market, I expect it's going to go significantly above its previous high of $50 an ounce, which it's hit twice in the past. I wouldn't be surprised to see it hit well over $100 an ounce this time around.
Yeah, neither would I, especially in a world in which central planners, central printing presses, central bank printing presses are out of control. And I don't say that hyperbolically. I mean, I say that quite literally.
No,
Fiat money is being printed faster than we've ever seen in human history, making physical precious metals so much more valuable than the common man could possibly understand. The common man sees Tesla at 2200 and doesn't think much about silver at 27. It astounds me.
I know. Well, that's all going to change. What we're looking at, actually, and this is going to be true regardless of whether Trump wins or, God forbid, Biden wins. It doesn't matter which one wins. They've both been painted into a corner. Um, and they think all they can do, and certainly absolutely true of Biden. I mean, but even Trump has shown his complete lack of understanding of economics, uh, wanting to see interest rates at 0% levels, pushing for printing up trillions of more dollars. It doesn't matter who wins. The dollar is going to be destroyed, and that's going to result in chaos, financial chaos, economic chaos. We're going to see political chaos, and we're going to see social chaos. It's going to be a very unpleasant time these next few years. And what you've got to do to defend yourself against this chaos is try to become as wealthy as you can to insulate yourself from the chaos. So, and I really see gold and silver as being the best commonsensical, easy ways to do that now.
Well, I couldn't agree more. As we're having this conversation on Friday, guys, silver is up 59 cents at $27.67. Gold is back up 41 bucks to 1975, threatening to pierce that psychological $2,000 number. The idea is that once it truly pierces $2,000 and stays up there for a while, it's clear sailing. Nobody knows where it could go. These are uncharted waters, aren't they, Doug?
Yes, they are. I'm not a chart reader. I do like to look at charts because they help put things in perspective and give me an idea of how high or low something is relative to the past. But both of these metals are going a lot higher. And I think we're going to see gold reinstated as day-to-day money sometime in the next decade after they destroy the dollar. Yes, I know they're going to try to replace the dollar with some type of a cryptocurrency and so forth, but it's 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. It's going to get back down to the precious metals again, and that's where I want to be. But more than the metals, I own the metals. I own both of them for prudence, safety, insurance, savings in cash form. But in order to maximize your profits, to speculate in this environment, you've got to own the shares of the companies that mine them and own them. And that's where I put most of my money, actually, at the mining stocks.
Yeah. You know, I'd be foolish to not ask you this since you mentioned here the death of the dollar and whatever system's coming next. In my view, these are my words, not yours, but in my view, if God forbid Biden becomes president and the Democrats are in control of the three branches of government, and there is a currency crisis in this nation, which appears to be happening now in the process of beginning, well, actually the story is very old, 1913 Federal Reserve, they've debased the purchasing power already by 98-99%. But if the Democrats are in control, in my view, they will try very hard to take us into some globalist solution of whatever the new currency is. Whereas maybe if Trump is in control, perhaps he could help us transition to a gold-backed new dollar situation or paradigm. Your view on any of that?
Well, I wouldn't plan my life around Trump doing anything that's terribly intelligent economically, although I very much appreciate his efforts to deregulate the economy and fight against a deep state. Not because I think he's fighting against a deep state mainly because they hate him and therefore he hates them. But I'm afraid the main reason I like Trump is because he's a cultural conservative. He'd like to see the U.S. return to the days of Leave It to Beaver and Father Knows Best, and it's not going to happen. But at least that's where his heart is. Very, very different from from the black hearts of the Democrats. But that said, and I hope he wins. I mean, I'll between choosing a rock and a hard place, I'll choose the hard place, I guess, Trump. But I'm afraid he's not going to win. I've thought about this, and I handicapped Trump to win in 2016, and I made a money bet with another well-known financial guy, which I won, that I thought Trump was going to win. This time, I'm not so sure for several reasons. This virus hysteria, which we're in now, and most people are absolutely misinformed and crazy and hysteric about the virus, that's working against Trump in a lot of ways. He can't have his meetings and so forth, which have always been helpful to him. I think the economy is going to get much worse. By the time the election comes, the economy is going to be worse. I think the stock market might crash by then. And that does not augur well for the guy in office. Second thing against Trump. Third thing is, I'd point out, is the demographics of the country. It's been another 4 years. That means 4 years more of kids moving into voting age. And schools, colleges, high schools, even grade schools, are nothing but indoctrination centers where they're imbued with all these socialist-leaning values, all these woke social justice warrior values. So the kids are all voting for, a new generation of kids are all voting for Trump, for Biden and the leftists. It's part of a general moral collapse in the US where I've got to say, white people in general, it seems, are ashamed to be white people. They're kind of rolling over and bending the knee to Black Lives Matter, more straws in the wind. The deep state, which is to say all the generals and most of the congressmen and the people that run these big corporations, Hollywood, academia, the media, they're all plumping as hard as they can against Trump. That's going to hurt him this time. They didn't take him seriously last time. This time they do, and they're all out against him. But actually, none of this matters. The real reason he's going to leave is because cheating. Both sides are going to cheat, but the Democrats are much more expert in cheating than the Republicans. So I think somehow the election will be stolen. So I'd gear up for stormy weather. It doesn't matter if Trump wins from one point of view, but I suspect, unfortunately, the Democrats are going to win. I hope I'm wrong.
Well, I hope you're wrong, too, and I do think that if they win, it's because they managed to steal it with mail-in ballot voting. I mean, here's the glimmer of hope, Doug. First of all, I couldn't agree more that the public schools and the colleges have become indoctrination camps, and they're all, look, the average teacher is a hardcore liberal. The average professor is a Marxist. That's, again, not hyperbolic. It's just a fact. And they've brainwashed these kids, and I agree with you. These kids will vote, those that actually turn out to vote will vote liberal because they've been indoctrinated into the Marxist socialist ways of thinking. But you're right. But I do believe the Democrats will have to steal this to win it because of what BLM and Antifa have been doing to the cities, and the Democrats have been nothing but supportive.
That's a good point. It could be that they've overplayed their hand. And of course, people that hate Trump, hate him so much, they'd vote for a Democrat, even if the Democrat was a chimpanzee. And I think they're all, maybe I suspect they're well aware that Biden is not mentis compos. He's senile, mildly deranged even. But look, this is a real toss-up. It really is. It's who cheats best. Okay, fine.
All right, we can wrap it up if you'd like. I was trying to find a Rand Paul clip. Rand Paul the other night, Doug, was followed home by a group of these nutbags, BLM, Antifa supporters, and he was mobbed, and if it weren't for the D.C. police, he might have been killed, he and his wife. He actually tweeted out, "Thank you to the D.C. police who literally saved our lives." The left has gone mad, and the American people, the right-thinking, red-blooded American people, are fed up, Doug.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, the left could have overplayed their hands on this. I don't know.
I think they have.
But I'm glad to be. I'm glad to be on a large farm in Uruguay now instead of in the U.S. because I can watch all this nonsense on my widescreen. I don't have to see it out my front window because it's going to get ugly.
Yeah, it's getting ugly, and you're right. This stuff is starting to spread to the suburbs, and it's all by design, Soros-backed NGOs, and the Democrats, again, supportive of all of it. Doug, a lot of people probably don't realize you're also an author. You've written books, Drug Lord and Speculator, and you're working hard on a new book called The Assassin. Tell me just a little bit about your books, will you, or the new one?
Right. Well, I decided some years ago that there are a lot of things that are better said in fiction than nonfiction, and in fact, might be dangerous to say in the form of nonfiction. So I started writing a series of novels, 7 novels. The first is called Speculator, and it's our hero makes a lot of money on a mining stock, goes to Africa to check it out, gets involved in a bush war with child soldiers and so forth. Speculator is a book that everybody should read that's involved in the mining space because I put a lot of knowledge about the metals and mining in addition to Africa and other things in that book. Then our hero, after 7 years of wandering around the world, comes back to the US and becomes a drug lord, in which I discuss both legal and illegal drugs and how he makes another fortune as a drug lord, which again, the government steals from him. So he's kind of pissed off at this point. And in this book, which will be out next month, it's called Assassin. And it contemplates the morality and the techniques and the history of political assassinations. Good thing, bad thing, should be done or not be done. So it's a book that might make a breakthrough to a wider audience, just because I think the average hoi polloi out there might think that Assassin, this must be a book about killing Trump. Well, it's not, but it is about political assassinations and all aspects of their history and techniques and morality. So I've got 4 other books that get more radical after this one. We can talk about them in the future, but if to buy any of these 3 books, and I urge people to do that, they should go to my website, which is internationalman.com, or go to highgroundbooks.com to get a hardback version. It'll become a collector's item, I think.
Well, that's very interesting. Your new one, Assassins, that reminds me of John Perkins' Confessions of an Economic Hitman to some degree. Sounds like a good read. And guys, just a reminder, the website for Doug Casey is internationalman.com, where he writes on a weekly basis. So check that out. Our guest has been the one, the only Doug Casey. Thank you, Doug.
Okay, this has been super. So I guess we'll talk again perhaps after the new year when we can see how bad it's all turned out, huh?
Oh, I would like that. Let's talk after the election, and hopefully we'll still see the same president sitting in the White House. That's my hope.
Yeah, me too. It's going to be nasty and chaotic no matter who wins, but especially if Trump wins. These chimpanzees will go crazy.
Yeah, well, they're already starting to go crazy. They've been weaponized. I really feel like they've been mentally weaponized. They've been so indoctrinated that they've now been weaponized, and they're roaming the streets of American cities, taunting, threatening, committing violence, intimidating anybody that doesn't think the way they do. It's absolutely horrifying and appalling.
You're right. Well, my advice to you, in addition to what we've talked about, is consider getting a crib outside the U.S. in case Biden wins and they lock down the country more or less permanently, which is possible.
Yeah, they may try to do that. They may try to enforce mandatory vaccines as well. Well, boy, do we have a lot to talk about then after the November election. So until then, Doug, take care of yourself, and thank you so much. And guys, just a quick word. Do your own due diligence. This was not a solicitation to buy or sell any stock. I do own a little Nova Gold. I used to own some Gold Mining Inc., but I stupidly sold it. So do your own due diligence. And I'll remind you, for real news 24/7, you can visit us directly at sgtreport.com, the antidote to corporate propaganda, and give us a try over at sgtreport.tv. Subscribe, and that will be the antidote to YouTube censorship. Thanks so much for tuning in, friends. Have a great week ahead. God bless.
George Orwell reminds us that for the left, the war is not meant to be won. It is meant to be continuous. And the end goal of the left is a perpetual civil war because it's the only way that they know that they can win.